Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today. The Twitter boss starts a Twitter storm in India. The United Nations calling for help as the United States tries to rip the fund for the Palestinians apart. A peace prize given to survivors of a school shooting. And Downing Street's cat shows he knows who's boss. Well, top of our newsfeed, Jack in India. Now, the boss of Twitter has apparently unwittingly caused a massive argument in India. Here's Nia to explain.
What does Twitter have to do with India's rigid caste system? Well, the answer lies in this particular photograph where you can see Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey holding up a poster that criticizes high caste-driven patriarchy in the country. Now, caste and the caste system is still practiced in India, unfortunately, and differences over it have often led to violence. But this particular poster refers to the Brahmin community, which sits at the top of the caste hierarchy in the country, and that's led many Hindus to accuse Jack Dorsey of inciting hate against a particular community. Mohandas by saying, tomorrow if Jack is given a poster with anti-Semitic messages in a meeting, will his team allow him to hold it up? He's saying inciting hate against any community is wrong. Similar sentiments expressed by Anand Ranganathan as well. He's saying you're not just speaking about smashing patriarchy in general, you're targeting a specific community here. He's saying why not speak of patriarchy as practiced by all, including whites, blacks, Muslims, Christians, and even Dalits. But there are a few people who have backed the message in that poster as well. Barkha Dutt, who was at that meeting between Jack Dorsey and journalists in New Delhi, is saying this, that Brahminical patriarchy is a fair and entirely mainstream phrase in the way that we now know the intersectionality of feminism and the critique of upper caste hegemony. She's saying it's not an attack on Brahmins, but on hierarchy, much like white privileges. Gaurav Pandey says, why feel sorry for saying that Brahminical patriarchy should be smashed? He says, it doesn't mean you're targeting the community of Brahmins as a whole, just like slamming white supremacy is an equivalent to slamming an entire race. Now, since then, Twitter has apologized. They put out this particular statement to say that poster was not a statement from Twitter or our CEO, but a tangible reflection of our company's efforts to see, hear, and understand all sides of important public conversations around the world. Now, public opinion on that particular poster is sharply divided, but many feel that Twitter could have possibly handled this issue in India much better.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. American millennials, two words that should strike fear into the heart of anyone who is not one. Now, apparently they are texting their mum and asking how to cook a turkey in the microwave. It is Thanksgiving. They then put the results of their parents' concern that they're going to give themselves food poisoning on the internet so other idiots, I mean millennials, can laugh at it. They're calling it the Turkey Challenge. Tekashi 6ix9ine has been held in New York and faces life in prison. The 22-year-old rapper has had a meteoric rise in the last 12 months and has documented that rise through Instagram and YouTube. His videos are huge. Now, he's avoided charge after charge, including involvement in a number of shootings and one for assault of a 16-year-old girl. He's currently being held on racketeering, weapons and drugs charges. His new album is due out on Friday. Photos like these are going viral. Photos of animals posing as if they're part of some rap or rock group from the 90s. Now, they're all pretty good, but how the photographer managed to get this supergroup of a llama, an ox, a sheep, a goat and a chicken together is to be applauded. I hear they go by the name All MacD's Fam. The mayor of a town called Northampton in Massachusetts in the US was first in line at a pot shop where recreational cannabis was on sale for the first time. David Narkowitz said he will put his purchase on display for potsterity. Massachusetts is the first East Coast state in the US to legally allow adults to buy cannabis if they choose to. There are 10 states in the US that have done so and counting. And they're all now seeing increased revenue from taxation of the product and have not seen an increase in crime or health issues. The current American administration is apparently doing all it can to make sure there can never be a Palestinian state, from moving their embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to gutting a UN program that has been supporting Palestinian refugees since 1947.
الشعب الفلسطيني حي بس احنا بنموت اذا الوكاله لا تقدم خدمات له لانه احنا بنعتمد على خدمات الأونروا واحنا لاجئين.
Palestinians have been suffering since US President Donald Trump first reduced aid to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, in January 2018. A few months later, he cut another $200 million of aid to Palestinian territories, adding to their woes.
We lost $300 million this year from the Americans, and for next year they've reduced the remaining $60 million. So for next year we've lost $360 million.
UNRWA was established in 1949 to provide relief to Palestinians who lost their homes after the establishment of Israel. Today, more than 5 million Palestinians in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, and the rest of the Middle East depend on this aid. In Gaza, 80% of people are dependent on foreign aid, and the reduction is affecting healthcare, food aid operations, and education.
احنا اهم شيء انه خايفين بكره تتوقف المدارس عن التعليم هذه وتصير الطامه كبرى، يعني حنوصل للطامه الكبرى انه الاطفال هذه تبطل تروح على المدارس.
والله في ناس ما عندهم اللقمه بيستنوا لما يطلع المؤن عشان ياخذوا الانتسيره وكيس الطحين ونكت السكر.
The US contributed at least a third of the total UNRWA budget in 2017. So what changed?
They believe we are not a useful organization.
Trump called UNRWA a flawed organization and says the US will dedicate the money to higher priorities. Nikki Haley, former US ambassador to the UN, said that it was in response to Palestinians being unhappy with the US decision to move its embassy to Jerusalem. But some say the Trump administration may be using it as a way to blackmail Palestinians into a peace deal that may favor Israel. Others believe the organization is critical to another issue: refugees and the right of return.
There is also a political attack. I believe there have been statements now by American officials that suggests that they feel reducing UNRWA or even getting rid of it means taking off the refugee question off the table.
UNRWA classifies all Palestinians displaced between 1947 and 1948 and their descendants as refugees. Palestinians have previously demanded that these refugees be allowed to return if a peace deal is reached. But Israel doesn't want that, and nor does Trump's government.
We see it as part of a larger political agenda to, from the American point of view, find a specific solution to the question of Palestine.
The shortfalls have impacted the Palestinians hard. But despite these cuts, aid has managed to flow in.
Our way of dealing with this is to appeal to the rest of the international community to step in. We've had, for example, Turkey provide us $10 million to our core budget. There are 280,000 children that go to our 275 schools. It is vital that continues to give these children a perspective and a hope for the future.
Will UNRWA be able to continue to deliver vital services without US support?
Now, Milorad Dodik is the first chairman of a complicated three-presidency system in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and he's made his nationalistic agenda pretty clear.
Milorad Dodik won the Serb seat of the presidency in the 2018 elections and is known for his separatist ideas. He has repeatedly called for the unconstitutional independence of Republika Srpska, an administrative unit with a semi-autonomous government. Dodik even threatened political opponents with the idea of an independence referendum. He's also invited criticism from around the world. The US has imposed sanctions on Dodik, freezing any property he has under US jurisdiction and banning Americans from doing business with him. But it wasn't always like this. Madeleine Albright, former US Secretary of State, once called him a breath of fresh air, and European leaders saw him as an alternative to Serb nationalists. His early politics earned him the support of the European Union, which promised and provided financial aid to Republika Srpska when he was appointed its Prime Minister. Dodik even called for the voluntary surrender of those indicted of war crimes in Bosnia and said he was willing to allow 70,000 Bosniak and Croat refugees to return to areas they fled during the bloody war. He was also the first Serb politician to refer to the atrocities carried out in the town of Srebrenica as a genocide. But Dodik has since changed his views. He even went a step ahead, inaugurating a student dormitory named after convicted war criminal Radovan Karadzic. Despite Dodik's separatist ideas and anti-Bosnian rhetoric, his views seem to resonate with the Serb population of the country. He won more than 53% of votes for the Serb seat of the presidency. Bosnia has a 3-member presidency, with each member representing a major ethnic group. The country still hasn't achieved sustainable reconciliation after the war, and the views on its future sometimes sharply differ.
Okay, let's go around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Wednesday. Now, Facebook has been used to hold an auction for a 17-year-old girl in South Sudan. She's called Nyelon Ngong Deng. Now, the girl's father was given 3 cars, $10,000 and 500 cows. Facebook say that once they found out about the auction, the page was taken down. This was after the girl had been sold. The men competing to buy her were all well-known businessmen and politicians. Now, this revelation is another grim milestone in Facebook's development. It was once a place people used to stay in touch with distant relatives. Now it's a place where children are sold. They need more than the dislike button for stuff like this. An insurance company in South Africa has done the right thing by one of its customers, but only after a huge social media backlash. Momentum held the life insurance of a man called Nathan Ganas. He was killed in a carjacking in 2014. And when his family submitted his claim, it was rejected because Nathan had not told the insurance company he had high blood pressure. The insurer argued that made his contract void, which is disgusting. So after a near 5-year campaign and people saying they would cancel their insurance with the company, the insurance company said they'd pay out by tweet. And the new trailer is out for the new Lego movie, and everything is not awesome. Not really, it looks great. Chris Pratt does the voice of not 1, but 2 characters, and it's out in February.
Hurry! The door is slowly closing!
Oh, the pain. It's getting so cold.
Emmett, what are you doing?
Hooray!
See, that wasn't so bad. Nothing got...
Now, the shooting of high school students in Florida in February did little to change US gun laws, but it served as another reminder that they need reform. Now, some of the survivors have been given awards by a hero of the protest movement.
The joyful laugh of a Nobel Peace Prize winner as he hands the International Children's Peace Prize to the survivors of Parkland shooting. Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu wanted to personally award the prize despite only being discharged from hospital recently.
The March for Our Lives movement is a prime example for millions of children around the world that children are change makers. They demonstrate that if you work together, trust each other, and build on one another, you can move the world.
In February this year, 17 students and teachers at Stoneman Douglas High School were killed in a shooting rampage by a former student. Survivors started March for Our Lives to lobby for tighter gun control. Since their movement began, more than 25 US states have passed some form of gun legislation.
Emma and I stand here tonight to accept this award on behalf of March for Our Lives and the millions of young people that are a critical part to this movement.
The Children's Peace Prize was founded by Kids' Rights, an organization that works to guarantee the rights of children. Past winners include Malala Yousafzai.
We must continue our campaign.
And like her, the Parkland survivors say they are only getting started.
And today's Animals Doing Stuff features one of Britain's best-known cats. He's called Larry, he catches mice for a living, and yesterday apparently he needed to get inside and he got the police to help him. And by inside, I mean inside number 10 Downing Street. Now, Larry was waiting patiently to be let into the house he shares with one Theresa May, but his roomie has more important things like Britain's future relationship with the European Union. So after a look from Larry that was like, come on mate, help a brother out, a nearby police officer did his duty. It was raining, after all. And that is all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints, and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Follow, subscribe, and add. See you again tomorrow.